Welcome, everyone, to the League of Extraordinary podcast, episode 4. Yeah, 4. We are flying right along. We are recording this on Tuesday, October 6th, and my guest this week, a good friend of mine. I have known him since I was about 14 years old, went to high school together. We've been to weddings. My guest is the owner of the Trophy Engravers, Ryan Schneer.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
By far the most enthusiastic response we've had from a guest on our show.
Good. I am glad. Well, it's easy to be enthusiastic when you're undefeated.
Amen. Amen. Yes, Ryan is our first place team right now. He is the only undefeated team as of right now after I fell in week 4. I wanted to jump in. We're going to start with some of our news and notes from around the league. And the first thing that we got to discuss is it's TRADE-A-PALOZA!
I'm going over the top right here. I'm buying the market.
We had 4 trades that all went through today. We're going to discuss our first trade today, which actually involved you, Ryan. So that was the Trophy Engravers acquiring Josh Jacobs, Evan Ingram, a 5th-round pick, a 9th-round pick, and a 16th-round pick. You made that trade with Krause and Harriman, Milk and Cookies. For Jared Cook, Zach Moss, you gave up a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th. So tell me a little bit about this trade, Ryan.
There's so much to unpack with this one. So, for the first thing is, low-hanging fruit, of course. The pick numbering, right? 6, 9, 4, 2. Lots of semi-intentional number play going on with the picks. But that's just the beginning, really. One storyline that comes from this trade is the fact that it appears that our champions are doing their best impression of the Florida Marlins and are in full fire sale right after they win. So it's really interesting to think about what this means for our league and particularly for me about, if I do continue on and hopefully I do continue on to win, will I be able to avoid the same fate? This shores up 2 holes for me. I did not give up a 3rd, so I still have a 1st and a 3rd. I got back a 5th. So I'm still fairly well populated when it comes to picks. And one thing that people don't realize about this trade is that the 5th-round pick I got back is going to be, if Evan Ingram does come back to form where we expected him to be this year, that is his keeper value. So I did acquire a 5th-round pick and drop a 4, which actually allows me to keep him lower as per our league rules. You could say it was from a position of weakness. And yes, I knocked up my mic. You could edit that out or leave it in.
No, we're leaving that in.
Piss me off with me saying edit it out, which we'll probably do. But yeah, this really shored me up. I don't think I gave up my future. And I'm sure we'll get into a conversation a little bit about my management philosophy in this league and how I got to where I am at this point, at later in the podcast, but I'm thrilled about this move. I think it's a win-win for both sides, and I think it was a fair deal.
It is definitely a fair deal. I do love the Florida Marlins reference, and for anyone who did not understand that reference, the Florida Marlins won championships in 1997 and 2003, I want to say. And every year,
2003, yeah.
And every year after winning a championship, they dismantled their team. So it looks like Krause and Harriman, who are our defending champs, are now in the dismantle phase of the Florida, now Miami Marlins. All right. So the second of our 4 trades that we're going to discuss involved actually a good friend of yours, Nick's 89, acquiring John Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, also getting a 10th and 11th round picks in exchange for Terry McLaurin, who is a huge keeper. He's eligible in the 12th round next year, also giving up a 2nd and an 8th. Those again go to Krause and Hammerman. And discussed it with Ben last week that DeAndre Hopkins has been passed around. I do want to just look at this trade, though, because Terry McLaurin, while he's obviously not of DeAndre Hopkins' caliber, he gave up a huge keeper. What do you think of trading that keeper value plus a 2nd-round pick to get DeAndre Hopkins?
So as you mentioned, I'm a big fan of Nick's team. I'm a friend of his. I hate this trade for him. The amount of added value that you're getting this year, even from Hopkins, is marginal at best, maybe over McLaurin. And you're giving up a 2nd and losing potentially an elite keeper. This is a guy that, as you said, if you get a decent quarterback in Washington, next year they got a full rebrand. Haskins stinks. They're probably going to move away from him. They're going to get a top pick. They got Chase Young. I mean, this guy is the number one in Washington for years to come, and he's keepable for like the next 5 years. So I don't understand. I mean, you're basically going for name value.
All right, let's move on to our third trade, which actually now involves me. This one only involved one player going back. So the two big sales were for Milton Cookies and Bill O'Brien, Disciple, as he calls his name, formerly of Toe Jam and Earl, still Ryan Barkin. And this trade is me getting Antonio Gibson, along with a 5th, a 7th, and an 11th. And Ryan and Bill O'Brien, Disciple, acquires a 4, a 6, and an 8. My logic for this trade was obviously I just lost Austin Eckler. I love Antonio Gibson.
I'm not sure what there is to say about this trade other than the fact that he's just giving away players at this point.
He is. He's giving away players. I'm very happy with the move that I made. I really needed the depth. I mean, my running backs going forwards are not great, but I just have so much depth at the position now with Myles Gaskin, now Antonio Gibson. I also have Raheem Mostert coming back. I'm going to have Le'Veon Bell coming back this week. Yeah, I mean, this is a move of Ryan giving away his team. I still think he got a decent return, and the reason why I wasn't going to give up too much is because Antonio Gibson was a 4th-round pick this year. He does not carry much keeper value. I don't see myself keeping him in the 2nd round. And we'll move on to our 4th and final trade of the week. Again, this is Bill O'Brien, Disciple, and Jews Rule the World, Josh. So Josh acquired Calvin Ridley, who is a 4th-round eligible keeper. He also gets a 4th, and a 16, so 2 4ths and a 16. Bill O'Brien, Disciple, acquires Ronald Jones Jr., a 2nd-round pick, and 2 thirds. And Calvin Ridley, again, is eligible in the 4th round next year.
I mean, I feel like we're beating a dead horse. You know, the way Ryan B manages his teams come up in the last few podcasts. It's like this trade is the most mind-boggling.
One thing I do want to give Ryan credit for in this trade, though, is actually getting a return. While he did give up Calvin Ridley, he did finally give back a 16th, one thing that I've been begging for him to do, instead of giving back 10s and 9s and 8s and going one round ahead. But he makes this big jump from 3 to 16.
I know we're going to get to this at some point. We're going to talk about his team, but I mean, I think this league way overvalues draft picks. We have a keeper league. The best players are off the board right away. Start the draft, pick one. You get 2 rounds of guys that couldn't be kept. After 2 rounds of guys that couldn't be kept, you're talking about really 5th, 6th, 7th round value. I don't get it. I think this league is about having 3 really good keepers that you keep for a long time, not about acquiring draft picks. I mean, you're just throwing your money away.
All right, so Ryan, I want to get your take on this, right? So we just went over the 4 trades that happened during TRADE-A-PALOZA. I'd like you to rank them from top to bottom, best trade to worst trade.
I'm not going to rank my trade first, just out of humility, but I think the trade I like the best is actually the Terry McLaurin acquisition for Milton Cookies. I think that was the best trade of the week. Number 2, I would say Jews Rule the World, who everybody thinks he's buying high. I actually think he really is going to sustain this. And then number 3, I'll say my pickup of Josh Jacobs, who I think towards the end of the season he's going to start putting up some really big games. And then last, I'll put Ryan B, because what are you doing?
All right.
I'll just put Ryan B last.
So just going to give a brief warning to some of our teams here. So the rules in this league for making trades are you are required to maintain 4 picks between rounds 1 through 5. So going through those trades, Rivers of Babylon, myself, is down to 4 picks in those first 5 rounds. Jews Rule the World is down to 4 picks. Kanish and Kaiser and you, Ryan, Trophy Engravers, all down to 4 picks in those top 5. So if you're going to make a trade involving a top 5 pick, you got to get one back. Team so far with the most top 5 picks going into 2021. Bill O'Brien, Disciple, has 7 picks, and now Milton Cookies has 7 picks. And now the teams with picks to trade because they're at 5 and 5. We have Juju on the beat and Bend It Like Beckham, arguably 2 of the most dangerous teams. Are still armed and dangerous.
Yeah. And those are the 2 teams that scare me the most, I think. And
They've got something up their sleeve. You know they do, and we'll soon see what happens because there are teams that haven't sold yet. We still have more than a Thielen that hasn't sold yet. Knishin Kaiser and Thibaut Warndis are going to be in the mix to potentially sell. So it's going to be interesting to really see what happens with two of the more competitive owners still having picks to go. We're going to jump right in now to our Week 4 recap, recapping all of our matchups. And the first matchup will go to you, Ryan. Trophy Engravers defeating Knicks 88. You, Ryan, again, as I mentioned, the only undefeated team going to 4-0. And then 11th place Knicks 88. Jason moving to 1-3. You won that one 184.88 to 109.34. And the first point I want to get at is another huge fourth quarter from a come-behind Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott racking up 56 points. I've mentioned it so many times before. We are a very high-scoring league. Dak racked up the points. He had nowhere near 56 if you were in a normal league, but still he's currently the number one scorer in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with 164.9 points, just barely eclipsing Russell Wilson. So, Ryan, I will ask you. I know your answer is, but I'm going to ask you, is the fantasy MVP for 2020 on your team?
I think the fantasy MVP for 2020, and potentially, depending on how the season goes, if their defense could be better, the NFL MVP maybe is on my team. So I was very, very high on Dak Prescott coming into this year with the way they stacked their team. I mean, with Gallup and Cooper right off the bat. I mean, they had a great 1-2 punch, and then to add Lamb, it's like, and they have Elliott. It's like, are you kidding me? And that line.
Don't forget Cedric Wilson.
So, I mean, that team is stacked. I mean, look, Dak is a top quarterback. I don't know if he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. He probably maybe is somewhere near the bottom of the top 10 in quarterbacks in this league. But the truth is, in fantasy, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's got weapons. That offense is robust. And I thank God I have him on my team, and thank God I have him as a late keeper, because, you know, he's for me this year what it looks like Lamar Jackson was for you last year. I mean, he is picking me up. Before Monday night, it looked like it was a close game, and I was saying to myself, thank God I have Dak, because he's going to win me those close weeks when my other players are not performing.
Well, when your team defense is giving up 30 and 40 points a game, and you are forced to come back every single week, you're going to put up points like this.
Yeah, and I hope their defense does not get any better. I don't care about the Cowboys at all. I don't care if they're good. I just keep putting up the points, whatever needs to happen. Just keep pouring it on.
And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I want to hear your thoughts on it. You made the move earlier in the week to pick up Robert Tonyan.
I'm chomping at the bit to talk about Robert Tonyan.
The tight end for Green Bay, who went off with 33.8 points in last night's game against the Falcons. Give me your thought process, because you picked him up, I think, on Wednesday and plugged him into your lineup. I gotta hear what your thought process was. How did you think to pick him up, and how did you think to plug him in with Gronkowski on your bench?
You know, I heard them talking a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and his injury situation, and then I saw him throw a touchdown pass to Robert Tonyan. I was looking at tight ends because Jared Cook got hurt last week, and I basically, this was just out of pure desperation. I needed someone to fill the spot, and then I saw Robert Tonyan, and I saw, okay, he scored 10 points in each of the last 3 weeks and had a touchdown in each of those weeks. Why not just take a flyer on him? So, I mean, I don't think I could have predicted that, but I saw it as the best floor available out of all the crappy tight ends. And aside from that, I got lucky.
And the second matchup we're going to discuss is second place Juju on the beat, moving to 3-1, defeating me, Rivers of Babylon, 5th place. Losing my first game, going down to 3-1. I lost this matchup 209.9 to 116.12, and congratulations to me, I lose biggest blowout. That's $10 in fab bonus goes to me, which I plan on using. But I want to look back at Ben's team, Juju on the beat, back-to-back 200-point weeks for him, and he has 24 more points than you, Ryan. And Juju, despite being 3-1 and despite being in second place, is outscoring you, Ryan. So I just want to get your take on that.
I mean, his team is scary.
Seems really scary.
You know, this is a little bit of an equalizing to have you and Ben back neck and neck now. So I'm a little scared he's going to be coming after me next.
But you did mention my injuries, and I got to ask myself, do I have enough to keep it together? I've traded already CMC, who was injured. I acquired Austin Eckler in that deal, who is also now hurt. I am really running low on running backs. I still have enough depth. I have enough talent with James White, Myles Gaskin. I went through them before. Now Antonio Gibson. But I'm nervous. I'm nervous that I may not have enough talent based on the roster construction that I try to put together.
Yeah, I mean, this matchup, I think, was a preview, as well as last week, I think, a preview of what's to come in our league, that we're really starting to see the contenders pull away with the league. And I think we're going to get a better idea of which of the contenders are really in the top tier. And I'm not sure, and I'll be slightly humble here. I'm not sure it's reflected in the order of the standings. I think Ben on paper is a better team than me. I'm scared of Fama's team.
We're going to move over to our third matchup, which is Bend It Like Beckham moving to 3-1, defeating Bill O'Brien Disciples 163.94 to 83.92. And everyone's favorite segment, Bill O'Brien Disciple, you win Stinker of the Week.
Boo! You stink!
Not even hitting the 90-point threshold. My goodness, Ryan, what a disgrace. But let's focus real quickly on Bend It Like Beckham's team. As per his name, he does roster Odell Beckham Jr. He had 3 touchdowns. He was a dominant force. Now, Ryan, do you think Odell Beckham Jr. is back to being a wide receiver 1 and he just pretty much took a full year off, a year plus, or is this a flash in the pan?
I do think Odell Beckham Jr. is on the way back. I mean, if you look at what the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfields have been doing this year, I don't buy into narratives and hype about guys being drama queens and not showing up. He was in a new organization, a new scheme, and to be honest, Baker Mayfield struggled last year. And I think that sometimes it does take time for players to get acclimated. And when you're on a team that's exciting, got an exciting young quarterback, you're winning. I do think that sometimes guys show up and come back and find their former selves. And I think as the Browns get into a rhythm, I think you're going to start to see Odell Beckham Jr. putting up big numbers again. And that's scary.
So now we're going to move over to Ryan B's team scoring under 84 points. I mean, I'm not even going to give him the 100-point threshold. He scored under 84 points, by far the lowest at any point this season. Now, I give you that 100-point threshold because I'm going to ask you, do you think Ryan's team scores 100 points at any point the rest of the year? We just finished up week 4. We have 9 more weeks to go. So he has 9 shots at 100 points. Does he go 0 for 9?
I think yes. I mean, especially if he finishes off trading the other guys that I know he shopped, like Jarvis Landry, who he's been trying to deal, and I'm sure he acquired Ronald Jones. I doubt he's going to be on his team for much longer. So I don't see right now where 100 points are coming from.
Our fourth matchup was a battle at the very end, another thrilling Monday night finish. Fourth place, Nick's 89, your buddy Nick. Actually, this is a battle of your buddies,
This
Ryan.
is a battle of my law school friends, yes.
So this is Nikhil, Nick's 89, going to 3-1, defeating Eric and Tebow warned us, moving to 2-2. Final score of this one was 146.6 to 143.72. And some of the biggest things that we need to talk about are, again, this is the tightest matchup of the week. Now, I want to talk about Eric's team because looking at his team, he's probably right on the cusp. Do you think Eric has a playoff team?
Do I think Eric has a playoff team? I think he has a chance to eke in to one of the top seeds. One of the later seeds, but I don't think he's got a contender. I think he's got too many holes. So if it's not for his running back situation, I think that we would be talking a bottom of the league kind of team. I think Eric can be a playoff team, but I think he needs to put some work into his roster. Otherwise, he is going to start to fade away, particularly if he has some tough matchups, which I don't know.
And looking at Nick's team, one thing that I really respect about him is he by far has the best backfield in the league. He has Ezekiel Elliott and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Those are his running backs 1 and 2. But then you look at his flex, and it does leave a little bit to be desired. So he's going to be rotating throughout the rest of the season. Cole Beasley, Julian Edelman, and John Brown. Do you think that is enough for Nick's 89? Do you think despite his incredible backfields, his flex position has enough to carry him?
Let me just say this. I mean, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, Nick's going to go pretty far in our league because he's pretty much starting the Buffalo Bills. So, I mean, he's got Allen, he's got Beasley, he's got Brown. But do I think Nick has what it takes? Yes. I think he could use a couple pieces. I mean, I do think as much as the Terry trade hurt him, to get a little bit of receiver depth in John Brown based on what his flex depth was necessary for him. Is he one of the scariest teams in the league? No, but he's going to make the playoffs, and he might win a round or two, especially if he could shore up a couple positions.
And moving over to our fifth matchup now, Jews Rule the World in 7th place, moves to 1-3. They pick up their first win over more than a Thielen. They move down to 1-3. Final score of that one was 166.4 to 124.9. And looking at Jews Rule the World, just going to ask you a very broad question of your outlook on Josh's Jews Rule the World for the rest of the season.
I think he's going to start steamrolling through this league. I mean, you go top to bottom, every position you're getting an above average number of points from. So he's got potential to be putting up big numbers week after week, and he's got players that have underperformed. This is one of the scarier teams in the league.
Moving on to more than a Thielen, let's be blunt here. Who are the best trade targets for his team? Because he's 1-3. He does not really have the prospects to have any more wins than what he's got. I mean, he will win a few more games, but aside from Cam Newton, he's got his keeper in Adam Thielen. He's got A.J. Brown. He's got Darius Slayton, who's iffy. And just looking at the team, who would be your top trade targets? He's got Kenyon Drake. He's got Miles Sanders. He has Gallup and Brown in the flex. That's Marquise Hollywood Brown. So I just want to get your take on who the top trade targets are.
I do want to talk about this team for a second. How is this team so bad? I mean, this team is not a bad team on paper.
It's a lot of top talent that has just not performed to their expectations. You can just point out the names: Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Michael Gallup, and Marquise Brown, all of which were projected to be top talents and have just dropped the ball. No pun intended there, but they have just struggled this year.
It's hard for me to say who the top trade targets are, because if I was managing the team, I wouldn't trade a single keeper. And I would try to acquire some top picks for guys that I can't keep or don't want to keep, and then try to see if I could get some guys off waivers and try to win a few games, and then maybe close to the deadline, rebuy and try to sneak in. I mean, if I were him, I would try to get a haul for, maybe even try to package them in the same deal, which would be scary for Brown, Gallup, and Sanders. Sanders, I think, is really his number one guy. I mean, that's a top pick. That's a guy that was on my team last year. Running backs always perform better the second half of the season when the defenses get tired. So Miles Sanders, that's really, I think, who the top trade target on his team is.
And we're going to move on now to our final matchup of the week. This was Knishan Kaiser in 8th place, picking up his first win, moving to 1-3, defeating Milk and Cookies. They moved down to 1-3 as well. Final score of this was 156.06 to 138.78. And we're going to look at Knishan Kaiser's team, and we all know the loss of Nick Chubb. Not 100% sure how long he's going to be out, whether or not the Browns are going to be forced to put him on IR with the injury. And one guy that Knishan Kaiser did keep going into this year was Kareem Hunt. So let's talk about Kareem Hunt's stock with the loss of Nick Chubb.
I mean, his stock was already high. His stock is higher now. This is a team that has communicated that they're selling, but we've had some trade discussions, and he seems like he's also on board with this sale mania that has overtaken our league. But yeah, Kareem Hunt is a huge asset for him. I mean, he's insanely deep at running back.
And we'll move over to Milk and Cookies. We have already mentioned that they are in the middle of their fire sale. So I'm going to ask you, Ryan, what are you willing to pay for David Johnson? Drink.
David Johnson, huh? I'm not self-drinking, but yeah.
Is the answer nothing?
I would say yes. I mean, that's a guy that was a few years ago, one of the best running backs in the league, pass catcher and a runner, and now he just not good. So
that is our Week 4 recap brought to you by Coke Zero. Same Coke taste with 0 sugar and 0 calories.
also brought to you by Kolbitzer Heidi Brauer Schwartz, brewed in accordance with the German purity law.
So as we finish up Week 4, we are now at the 1/3 point of the season, and let's just quickly take a look at our standings. Again, Trophy Engravers, you are in first place at 4-0, followed by Juju on the Beat. There is a 4-way tie at 3-1. Juju on the Beat, Bend It Like Beckham, Knicks 89, and then me. Tebow warned us in 6th place, stands alone at 2-2, and then everyone else at 1-3. Jews rule the world. Knish and Kaiser, Milf and Cookies, Bill O'Brien Disciple, Knicks 88, and More Than a Thielen. So those are our standings, and then let's reflect them against our current Yahoo projections, which has Juju on the Beat winning it all at 12-1, Trophy Engravers at 10-3, followed by me at 10-3. Then Jews rule the world 8-5. Knish and Kaiser, they actually have up pretty high at finishing 8-5. Same with Knicks 88, winning a few more games, going to 6-7. They actually, this is a little bit surprising here, as they have Bend It Like Beckham dropping all the way to 5-8. He already has 3 wins, so they are only projecting 2 more wins for Bend It Like Beckham. Then Knicks 89 would go down to 5-8. Milf and Cookies in 9th place at 5-8. Tebow warned us, dropping to 4-9. Again, these are our current Yahoo projections. More Than a Thielen at 3-10. And then, of course, in last place is Bill O'Brien Disciple. They have them projected to win just 1 more game this season.
I was going to say, where's that win coming from? But okay.
So, I mean, just comparing the projections to the current standings, I think probably the most surprising and shocking thing coming out of this is Bend It Like Beckham, which they again have projected. Currently, they are in 3rd place at 3-1, but projected to finish at 5-8. So that would mean just 2 more wins throughout the course of the season for the Fama Greenwood-led Bend It Like Beckhams.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing you always need to keep in mind when it comes to projections, especially when you get to the later part of the season, is that guys are sitting in the starting lineup that are on bye weeks that are not going to be there. So he's got one guy on bye every week versus having like 3 guys on bye one week. So if you have like a bunch of guys on bye the same week, you just chalk an L in the L column. But if you have one guy on bye a bunch of weeks, that's the difference in a close matchup. Yahoo's going to ding you for that. So I wonder whether that's just the projection system being funky.
One thing that Ben has been saying since the beginning, he's kind of quieted down about it, but was his schedule. He said that he had one of the easiest schedules, now moving on, and then after the schedule readjustment, said he had one of the harder schedules. And I want to bring this to his attention, and I'll bring it to your attention, which is really interesting. His points against 1681 is the lowest. The lowest. So Yahoo thinks he has the easiest schedule. So Ben, fuck off. And our next segment is moving over to league storylines, and we'll start with Week 4 is apparently the week to sell. Who knew? Week 4 out of a 13-week regular season is the time to sell. As we went over, we had TRADE-A-PALOZA this past week. We're going to move on to one of my favorite segments, Boneheaded Move of the Week. Ryan B has won this every week, but this week it's a tie. And it's a tie between Ryan and Josh. Both for the Calvin Ridley trade.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Good job, guys. So it's a tie for Ryan trading away Calvin Ridley, one of his top keepers, and it's a boneheaded move for Josh to acquire Calvin Ridley for effectively a 3rd-round pick.
So I don't agree with the tie. I do. I think that Josh made a good trade for Calvin Ridley. As you could see from the standings, his team is stacked. Calvin Ridley is a great player. I think it's worth it.
And we are going to move over to a serious note real quick. I had discussed it earlier this morning in the league chat. So we have an update on our owner, Bill O'Brien Disciple, Ryan Barkin. Ryan Barkin, effective today, has been placed on probation for the next 1.5 years. I have informed him that he may continue to sell off pieces and acquire assets to get him ready for 2021. But the fact remains, he has been in the league for 4 years. He has sold off 4 years. He has not made much progress in the league. I'm really rooting for him to make progress, and I want him to. So I'm going to light a fire under his ass, and he is not allowed to sell next year. He must field a competitive team. He must do what he can to put together a good team. And he's in a good position to do so. He has already 7 picks in the first 5 rounds. I think he's in good shape. So looking forward to seeing Ryan's team in 2021 and what he can do to put together a competitive team.
He needs to rethink his strategy. I mean, this perpetual rebuild, whatever this is, it's not working.
To close out our podcast, we're going to move over to our Week 5 preview. First matchup that we will look at is Bend It Like Beckham in 3rd place at 3-1 versus the 1st place Trophy Engravers. Trophy Engravers, this is a huge matchup for you. You're 4-0 going into this, and I just got to know what your plan is. You have Aaron Jones on bye. Nick Chubb is hurt. I just want to know what your thought process is.
I mean, the truth is that I feel pretty good. I have McKinnon, and McKinnon has been an unexpected surprise at running back, and I've been able to slot Josh Jacobs right into my lineup. And yes, Nick Chubb's hurt, but then Aaron Jones is going to be on bye, going to come back next week. So this week, you know, I think I'm okay at running back. I've got some good receiver depth. Robbie Anderson has shown that he could put up 10-plus points, and Jamison Crowder both weeks when he's healthy. He's literally the only target Sam Darnold has to throw to. He's going to put up another big game. So, you know, I'm okay. I got a flex spot to fill, and I'm really encouraged by what Damian Harris did in New England. And similar to what I did with Tani last week, I'm considering just rolling the dice with him, filling one of my extra flex spots up with him, and seeing if he could build on what he did this week.
So right now you are starting Josh Jacobs, who you just acquired, and Jerick McKinnon. Is this who you're going to be starting going into Sunday?
It looks like it. Yes, those are going to be my two guys going at running back.
The last matchup that we're going to discuss today, which is Tebow Warren does at 2-2 versus Knishan Kaiser 1-3. The reason why I'm bringing this matchup up is because both teams in this matchup have a lot to prove. I know it's early on in the season, but I think you could look at this matchup as winner gets to the playoffs and loser goes home. What do you think?
There's this group of teams, Knishan Kaiser can Jews rule the rule, Tebow Warren's us. I would maybe even put Knicks 89 in that category, that there's still a chance that each of those 4 teams could be one of the best teams in the league, or they could fall out of the playoffs completely. And I think this matchup potentially could expose Tebow Warren's us as a pretender. That really, you know, this is a team that is maybe on the outskirts of the playoffs. And maybe this might show that Knishan Kaiser's team is, again, as we've looked at, much better than advertised.
And that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest, Ryan Schneer, owner of Trophy Engravers.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.